So you're finally under contract with your dream home. And as part of your due diligence, your realtor advises you to get a professional home inspection. So how do you order a home inspection, and how do you know what is important when you finally get the report? We're going to go over all of these items right now. By the way, at the end of the video, I will give you 5 tips that will be very valuable to you when you take your home inspection to the next step. Okay, why do we get a home inspection? Usually during the first 10 to 12 days of your under contract period, you have what is called a due diligence period. This is the period in which you make sure that the house you're under contract with is what you really want. You check the plat maps, the HOA, the CC&Rs, the seller disclosures, etc. Also, this is the time that you would typically get a home inspection on the house. This is very important to do because even though the seller is presenting you with a 6-page seller disclosure document, the seller may not know of all the problems with the house because the seller disclosure document only requires the seller to tell you about home conditions that they know about. And these are conditions that are observable to the average person. So it's very important to hire a professional home inspector who will test every light socket, who will crawl up into the attic, who will look for rot and leaks, and he'll probably even use an infrared camera to look for mold. Now, your typical seller is probably not going to know about all the problem areas that are not really in plain sight. So how to order a home inspection? Your realtor should have a list of home inspectors that they've worked with in the past. You can also do an online search for inspectors who service the area in which you're buying the home. Typically, home inspectors will charge by the square foot, so have that information available when you book the appointment. The home inspector will have the buyer pay them upfront or before the inspection report is delivered to the buyer. You will need to have your realtor coordinate with the listing agent as to the best time for the inspection. Now, most professional inspectors will have a realtor key in which they can open the door at the appointed time. Many inspectors will offer additional charge services such as radon testing, mold testing, meth drug testing, etc. And some of these tests will add a few days to the inspection, so make sure you have enough time to get them done. Also be aware that the inspection is not part of your typical buyer closing costs with the lender, such as appraisal, points, doc fees, home insurance, and prepaid taxes. So let's look at the inspection. The inspectors will have a list of items that they're inspecting from the outside of the home to each room inside the home, to the attic, to the roof, and all the appliances inside and out. The average home inspection takes about 3 to 5 hours, and usually the home inspector is fine with the buyer coming out during the last half hour or so. And during that last half hour, the inspector can highlight current problem areas and areas in which the buyer should be aware of for the future. Typically, the inspector will then email a report, if they've been paid, to both you and your agent if that's what you choose. Important, make sure that the report is issued several days before your due diligence deadline so that you have enough time to negotiate any seller repairs before that deadline. Both the buyer and the seller must agree in writing to any repairs before that deadline for the seller to be legally bound to do the agreed upon repairs. Okay, the home inspection report. So most inspection reports will have a summary at the front of the report and then multiple pages of detail. A good report will highlight in an easy to read form the items that are very important and then the items that are more of an FYI for future maintenance. Each summary item should then have a page number reference that you can see pictures and more detailed information later on in the report. Many inspectors will allow you to call them if you have any questions about items on the report, and I recommend asking each inspector that question before you hire them. So typical items found on the report. You almost always find issues with plumbing, electrical, and HVAC. Sometimes one of these, sometimes two, sometimes all three. I always recommend to my buyers that they look for the big things rather than the little things like scuffs in the paint, scuffs in the door, and the molding and stuff. Sellers are more likely to fix important items rather than little cosmetic things. Plumbing issues are very important because of potential mold and rot problems. If there are several plumbing issues, such as leaky faucets and pipes, the buyer can usually ask the seller to have a licensed plumber go out to the property and fix a number of items at the same time. In older homes, you usually see some electrical issues, especially if the seller finished their own basement. This is something which you really want a licensed electrician to handle versus the seller. The electrical items I see most are double-tapped circuit breakers, loose and uncapped wiring, faulty sockets, and GFI plates. Often homes will also be missing fire and carbon monoxide detectors in the various rooms per code. HVAC is another area in which I see a lot of issues. Leaking water heaters, unserviced furnaces, and air conditioning. That's very common. It is not out of the question to ask the seller to have the furnace, air conditioning, and water heater serviced. Roofing is an issue which can result in the buyer canceling the offer, frankly, because it's very rare that a seller will agree to replace the entire roof. This is due to the cost and the time to do the replacement. It has to be the right time of the year, etc. More often, you'll find loose shingles, flashing that needs repair, and downspouts that need replacing. Before your due diligence deadline, you should get agreement from the seller in writing as to what repairs they will make and when they will have it completed. The seller may offer to fix the items on your list, or frankly, just lower the price of the house, or just give you some money toward closing costs for you to do the work later on. But be aware that some items on the list may affect the appraisal, and you may not be able to get a loan for the house in its current condition. For example, if the roof is leaking, or if the foundation is cracked, the lender may not approve the loan. Or the appraiser may say that the home appraises for $500,000, subject to a foundation crack being repaired. They may also require a structural engineer or roofer to come out to certify that a problem area identified by the inspector is not critical. Okay, here are 5 tips to remember and how to go to the next step with your home inspection. Number 1, don't panic when you see the home inspection report. It is the inspector's job to outline all problem areas and future concerns. The home that you're buying is not a brand new home. Most items can be fixed, or you can budget to fix them later. Ask the inspector which items need attention today and which can be put off. Number 2, be fair to the seller. Again, it's not a brand new home. Sellers are more likely to repair items that are safety issues or that are plumbing, electrical, and HVAC rather than painting the walls just because you don't like the color. If you get too nitpicky on your repair list, the seller is more likely to be offended and want to do less than they would normally do. I've seen this a ton of times. Many lenders have issues with painting or carpet allowances, so check with your lender. Essentially, the money allocated for a carpet or paint allowance must be held by a title company at closing and then paid to a licensed painter or carpet company after closing. It cannot be given to the buyer to hold for future painting. Many inspectors will offer radon testing. This usually takes a few days and the seller needs to cooperate to get accurate readings. Typically, one does not do a mold test unless the inspector suspects that there is mold in the house, because some mold tests actually involve drilling holes in the wall. But meth tests are pretty easy, as they tend to just take swab samples from the air ducts and so forth and send it into a lab. Remember, it is your responsibility to do your due diligence and have the house checked by a qualified, licensed home inspector. Your brother-in-law may have a lot of experience, but it's not his full-time job to inspect homes. It's better to go with the pro for your most important investment. Be sure to watch my videos on should I buy or build a home and 5 tips to getting qualified for a loan. Thanks very much and have a great day. See ya.